There we are. My day's going pretty good so far, Samuel. How about yours? Glad to hear it. So today we're doing bad Sega Saturn games. Now, the poor Sega Saturn only lasted from 1995 until 1998. Probably the shortest-lived mainstream console, but somebody might want to check me on that. Are a sleep schedule guy. I don't quite understand what you're asking. Am I a sleep schedule guy? I'm a bad sleep schedule guy, is what I am. Why do you ask? Let's see. I, eh, I suppose we can get started. First game on the list. Mega Man X3. Oh, because you were getting ready for bed when I started my Genshin Impact stream. Oh. Oh, well. I live on the East Coast of the United States. And I guess that would have been about... Oh, what time did I start yesterday? I mean, it was about 3 o'clock, so... Can I burn Xiangling? Ha! Got a problem with her? Oh, excuse me. So, Mega Man X3. Apparently, this Saturn version of the game had inferior sound effects to the PlayStation version. Too similar to other Mega Man games that came before it. You know, it's based on that same Mega Man formula, but didn't really do anything to enhance it or improve upon it or do anything innovative. Low quality cutscenes. People were very disappointed about that. And apparently, the game had vertical letterboxes that artificially made the horizontal borders of the screen smaller. And people were not happy with that, as you can imagine. Oh, and as a matter of fact, Sega Power magazine called it the worst game in the Saturn library. That's quite an accomplishment. You hate her. Came across her today and tried losing the cook-off on purpose, had to redo it. She's also really weird, and the first 5 minutes you spent with her, you hated it. Wow. Most players hate Amber the most. I'll have to make that a special video. Burning our least favorite things about Genshin Impact. Yeah, you know, it's funny though. And you like Amber. You see, here's the thing. I actually kind of like her too. Because so far she's the only fire character I have that can do reliably consistent fire damage. She seems like Tracer to you. Oh, Amber does? Cheers, love! The cavalry's here! Because with Xiangling, you have to worry. The only way to do fire damage is to use her Galpa. Oh, thank you, Samuel. And it's fine, you know. It'll sit there and like spit fire at enemies. It'll even turn in place to face enemies if it doesn't see any. But here's the problem. You can't do fire damage at any height with it, because it only does fire damage straight ahead. So, if you need to hit something in the air with fire damage, you have no choice but to rely on Amber. And then you have to wait for Galpa's cooldown, which granted isn't that long, but still... It's nicer having Amber than I can do fire damage at a more consistent rate. All you gotta do is wait for her arrow to charge each time, which takes much less time. So the next game on the list is Double Switch. Sure. There we go. So, let's talk about Double Switch. It's this game where you're basically, watching video cameras in this building and, like, trying to catch a killer. But there's it's apparently, like, a very particular way you have to go about doing it. And, this game was actually on the Sega CD first, and then it was ported to the Saturn later with some enhancements. But, much like the Sega CD version, it's repetitive, often confusing. The gameplay is completely trial and error. And, the video clips in the game were lower quality than people were expecting to see on the Sega Saturn. And let's see, who's my least favorite character in Genshin Impact? At the moment, I'd have to say Kaya. I use him in back-to-the-wall situations only that absolutely require me to use Frost. And once I get another Frost character, I'll probably never use him again, unless it's part of the story. Oh, 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 oh. You test ran a new water character? Oh, what's the new character's name? don't remember. It's all good. Next game on the list, Independence Day. If I can find it. There it is. But you can wish for the 3 new characters. Yeah, here's hoping. I'm at sort of the grind wall part of the game where wishes are a little hard to come by. So I've been trying to save up Primo Gems to buy more Quaint Fate. Pardon me. A chubby short fire one, a water one, and electric. I'll have to check those out next time I play. Sure. So let's talk about Independence Day on the Sega Saturn. There's very little gameplay variety. I actually watched the Angry Video Game Nerd review the PlayStation version. I don't imagine it's all that different, but yeah, it's very repetitive gameplay. You're tucked into a fairly small area where you're flying around constantly. Because the whole point of the game is to constantly destroy the motherships that are about to destroy this like whole city. And it was apparently considered, like, while repetitive, it was like also kind of like stupid easy and too easy to have any real replay value. And then the graphics in the game were actually kind of rough and definitely not what people were expecting for the new, at the time, Sega Saturn. And there was a significant slowdown experienced in the multiplayer mode. Now, why didn't it fly to the side? That's disappointing. You're earning up and hoping to get Noelle? That's cool. I actually managed to get Noelle from some specialty wish I had very early in the game when I started playing. I can't remember exactly what. And Kieran wants me to burn a bunch of defunct video game companies. Would I recommend her? Well, that depends on your playstyle. She has this elemental shield that she can use, and she's Earth Element, and she uses a two-hander. And so the people with two-handers make mining a lot easier because their weapons do more damage. So if you don't have any other people with a two-hander in the party, she'll be very useful to you. Next game on the list. Shinobi Legions. If I can find it. Is that it? Yeah, there it is. So at least in the short term, yes, I would recommend Noelle. So let's talk about Shinobi Legions. Some people said, this is one of those games that actually got a little bit of love from certain people. But while it, was based on that established Shinobi formula, it didn't do anything to improve or build upon or make any innovations to that established and beloved Shinobi formula. Your friend keeps calling you, and you can't hear what I said. Am I doing 6th generation consoles next? I don't know. If I can find 10 of them that were awful. Let's see. Shinobi Legends. Okay, so very lame and out of place FMV sequences. Apparently, there were video cutscenes that people felt just shouldn't have been in the game at all. Oh, about Noelle. Yeah, I would recommend her in the short term, at least. Based on your, and it's really based on your playing style. She has a shield she can use, and then her elemental burst she can power up. She basically turns her two-hander into an enormous lightsaber and does a lot of extra damage. But if you don't have any other characters who use a two-handed weapon in your party yet, you'll want to use her just for just to make mining easier, especially once you start coming across stuff like core lapis and crystals and stuff like that. And as for Shinobi Legends, they made the combat system like more in your face and like up close and personal, where you'd like have to like swipe at enemies with your melee weapons and do quick combos to clear the screen of enemies and things like that. But in doing so, they sort of force you into that by artificially weakening the shurikens compared to other games. So they move hideously slowly compared to what you would think a shuriken would do. And there was also very weak level design. So, there we go. Look, I just designed a level for Shinobi Legions. Also known as Shinobi X, as pictured here in some parts of the world. And so the spinning blades on this grinder is about the closest thing that we're going to get to ninja shurikens here. So let's set this squirrel on fire and watch the show. Goodbye, Shinobi X, aka Shinobi Legions. That was fun. Let's move to the next game. Street Fighter, the movie, the game. Street Fighter. And yes, that's what the voice sample sounds like on the title screen. Street Fighter. So let's get our fighting game cast together. Street Fighter.
Yahar.
The puzzle piece.
Oh boy.
Oh. Imitation Meat Boy. Oh, heck, we'll just throw them in there. Why not?
Yahar.
Hey.
Hmm.
Bully. Digitized graphics from the hit movie. That's written on the top there. So let's talk about Street Fighter the movie, the game. Now, this is a game I actually played back in the day, but on PlayStation. And, you know, like the move sets are basically the same for all the people in the game, except there's two key differences. Dalsim isn't in the game, and T-Hawk isn't in the game. And as I understand it, part of the like the contract for doing the movie was that they also needed to go into the studio to do all the motion capture and stuff for the digitization for the characters for the movie-based game, for the movie-based fighting game. But apparently the actor who played T-Hawk got his check and skipped town and never went in to do the digitization, and so T-Hawk is not in the game.
I'm so pretty.
And let's talk about the game itself. Okay, so one of the main things that caught people's attention with this game was that it was not actually a port of the arcade game. And they just like redid the game, I guess, from the ground up with digitized, you know, with the digitized actors. And it's basically, they basically took the skeleton of Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo and painted Street Fighter the movie, the game, over it with the digitized actors. And it did not come out to be visually pleasing. And the control scheme is wonky, even though it's supposed to basically be the same as the Street Fighter moves. I don't know how you screw that up. But it had apparently very bad voice sampling, and apparently, like, I don't know why there wasn't more direction on what the actors were supposed to say. Like, take Ken, for instance. Like, instead of yelling Shoryuken when he does his Dragon Punch, he yells out, Dragon! Dragon! And they yell, like, Hadouken instead of Hadouken. It's very strange. Not what you're used to. And let's see. Poorly animated, yeah, and visually unimpressive, which we covered. So, since Dalsim isn't in the game, Yoga Fire! Very nice. Very nice. Next game on the list. Marvel Superheroes. And let's see. This is another fighting game, but we don't need to do the fighting cast twice in a row. Sure. So, this was another one that I played the PlayStation version of. And, apparently this game suffers from slowdown when, there's larger characters on the screen like Hulk and Juggernaut. I don't know why you wouldn't plan for that when you design the game, but... where is it? Not enough innovation over previous Capcom fighting games, right? I mean, these are the people that brought us Street Fighter, so you would think that they would make a stellar fighting game using the Marvel franchise. And to be fair, this is another game that did not get wholly bad reviews. There's people out there that genuinely like this game. But, there's only 10 characters in it, which many people found disappointing, especially since Super Street Fighter 2, the new challengers, came out a year before this, and it had 16 characters in it. So, I mean, maybe it was like a licensing thing, to where Marvel only gave Capcom license to do 10 characters, but still. Like, as huge as the Marvel universe was by the 90s, you would think a Marvel superheroes fighting game would have more than 10 characters in it. But I digress. Well, that's not really digressing, but I don't want to kick a dead horse. It's not quite what I was expecting, but okay. I was just, you know... Because you had that whole stone power-up thing in the game where you get those different infinity gems. I am inevitable. Next game. Robotica. If I can find it. I believe this is it. So, if we're talking about robots, then let's find robo-like things. And what's wrong with this game? Wow. Okay. Wow, this game had a lot of... This game had a lot of things wrong with it. Let's get our exterminator back out. We always love to use him when possible. That'll work. And where's my robots? There we go. Yeah, here we go. Robotica. Brought to us by Acclaim, who's known for making a lot of good games, but not this one. So apparently, this game was known to people at its time as Discount Doom. And now, there were a lot of Doom clones floating around, but this one was not a memorable one. Very, very little variation in the gameplay, which, I mean, already, Doom itself is already fairly repetitive in the gameplay. You just go around killing everything that moves. But somehow, people like doing that in Doom, but this game seemed to make it boring. So, overly simplistic gameplay. So maybe there just wasn't enough variation in the guns available and things like that. I don't quite know. Very dull textures and non-thematic music. So apparently there was stuff like music that just doesn't belong in this game. If they had like, you know, happy rainbow unicorn music or something instead of something gritty or electronic sounding like you would for a futuristic robot shooting game. I don't know, but it had very choppy frame rates and experienced a lot of slowdown. Yes, Karen, I'll be moving on to those next. So, let's give this Robotica game the send-off that it so richly deserves. That green pixelated fire. Isn't it gorgeous? And he's still going. Alright, next game on the list. Virtual Hydlide now. Woo! What can you say about Virtual Hydlide? Let's put some nice fantasy enemies in there for you. And sure, why not? That'll work. So, I don't know who played the original Hydlide on Nintendo. It's not great. This is another game the Angry Video Game Nerd has covered. So, I couldn't do his review justice, but basically, this was basically a... I just said basically twice, how redundant. This is a updated version of the first Hydlide game. It's based on that same formula. Dragon kidnaps a princess and the three fairies and that whole deal. So you have to, you know, run around and get the cross and fight a wizard and fight a vampire and this kind of stuff. As for the game itself, it has extremely tedious and unremarkable gameplay. It's, you know, the whole game is basically a giant fetch quest. Go here, do this, pick this up, run over here and do, you know, and overall, it's not a satisfying experience. Unimpressive sound effects, yeah, gotta have that. They're about what you'd, like, the sounds themselves are kind of what you would expect for, like, a fantasy adventure game. But, like, the quality of the sound is just not there. And horrendous voice work, and yeah, like, there's a couple enemies in the game that talk to you, like the boss enemies. like they try to taunt you and stuff before you fight them, but you can barely make out what they're saying. And to this day, I still don't know what they say. So what they say might appear as text on the screen. And if it's not for that, then I have no idea how you'd tell what they're saying. And also, needlessly random layout. See, when you start the game, you generate a world seed. You see? And it randomizes the entire layout of the game world. You still do all the same quests in exactly the same order. It's just that the layout is different. What's the point? It's a kind of a very poor attempt to create replay value where there absolutely is none. So now we got our 3 fairies, represented by these 3 little navy-like galaxies. So how do we want to start this off? Let's burn the spider. Oh wow, that was surprising. There we go. Moving on. Batman Forever. Whoo, doggy. Now, truthfully, this one was one that I had just a little bit of difficulty finding serious things wrong with it. Now, this game is one of those games that's considered objectively inferior to the arcade version. I know a lot of arcade games that when they come to console aren't as good as their arcade counterparts, but some of them do just fine. Like, look at Street Fighter 2, you know, the Ninja Turtle games. And what have you. But this game apparently had frames missing compared to the arcade version of the game, like frames of animation. I don't know why. Maybe that was to help prevent slowdown from not making the Saturn process as many frames. I don't really know. But apparently the Saturn port had rigid textures that were kind of blocky and not fun to look at. Overly repetitive gameplay, which, once again, is par for the course for side-scrolling beat-em-ups. But you need to make it, you know, riveting and engaging, you know, like in the Turtles games and Streets of Rage. Somehow they missed the mark on that here. And that's really all I managed to find about it. If anybody else has something negative to say about Batman Forever on the Sega Saturn, I would love to hear what you have to say. Okay, let's move on. Last game on the list. Battle Monsters. Let's find all the monstrous looking fun things that we can. Sure. And why not? Sure. Oops. Alright, Battle Monsters. Now, I will admit, that is actually kind of a cool cover art. Not the greatest looking, but still. Got like a Medusa type character and like a, I don't know, like a skeletal T-Rex or something like that. So let's talk about the game itself. Apparently this is one of the, some people have called this probably the worst, 2D fighter ever made. It has very poorly digitized, graphics as the fighters. And apparently, a lot of people thought that the various elements of this game were all competing with each other and all didn't fit together very well. Which are the graphics themselves, which are those poorly digitized actors as the monsters, the control scheme, the animation, and the multi-tiered arenas. Because apparently, you can, like, I guess knock your opponent up or down onto a different floor. Kind of like you could do a little bit in, like, Mortal Kombat 3 and stuff like that. But here it was like a main part of the game instead of like something that randomly happened after an uppercut. But apparently it did not translate well into gameplay fun, and people just thought it took away from the experience. And there was very bad texture blending. I read someone's comment that made the comparison to a background, and then the characters are cut and pasted on top of the screen. It's that bad of blending, making it look like the characters are, you know, actually there, which is pretty bad. And someone else commented that it's actually not too bad as single player because it's kind of like cheesy, like knocking people around. Like you can knock someone in the air and continuously hit them to do like combos and just like kind of ragdoll them a little bit. But as a two-player game, it's horrendous. So if you ever try to play this game two-player, you're gonna have a bad time. Why not? Stay up there. There we go. Alright, let's give this game the send-off it deserves. Yeah, there's some bad fighting games out there. Like Ultraman and Dangerous Streets. But man, you have to work pretty hard to create a 2D fighter that has the problems that Battle Monsters has. Oh, here's another reason you hate Zhang Ling. She killed a boar last of its species. I remember doing that quest. Alright, so, that's that list done and dusted. I believe the next one is going to be bad PlayStation 2 games. Well, the next, like, requested list. Tomorrow I might come back with something a little bit of my own making, just for variety. Not sure what that is yet, but I like things to be a surprise once in a while, so I'm going to take a short break and be back before 3:30 EST. Before 3:30. So keep your eyes peeled and your ears to the ground. And I'll be back with some Phantasy Star 3, and we're going to try to finish out Prince Aaron's storyline. And then we can move on to the next Phantasy Star 4 randomizer that was requested. So for now, whether you were watching live or are watching this on a replay, thank you for coming on the journey with me. Stay safe out there. Make sure to hit all the social medias and stuff. Tell your friends about me and the Hamburglar stream. I'll be dressing up as the Hamburglar and eating cheeseburgers Hamburglar style once I hit 75